Solomon begins his journey. Solomon begins his journey. Let's see what he does, good and bad and indifferent. So far, his father gave him some commandments, and he did it. He carried out his father's commandments, and he did it graciously also. Now let's go on and see some more things about Solomon, the good things in his life, and we need to always look at this. Solomon is a very famous man throughout all religions and all things. He's like Abraham. Then Solomon formed a marriage alliance with Pharaoh. What does Pharaoh mean?
What?
What does Pharaoh mean?
Big house.
The man in the big house. That's what Pharaoh means, man in the big house. Now, Pharaoh is a type of the world, isn't it? Egypt is a type of the world. Stay away from that, but the first thing he does here, he makes a political marriage. How many wives did Solomon have?
600?
No.
700?
No.
1,000?
No. 1,001 wives, and we're going to see that later.
1,001.
1,001 wives. Now that wasn't too good for the women, was it? To share their man with 1,001 women. 1,000 women. It was 1,001, so every one they were all sharing him, and probably not getting to see him very often. And Solomon formed a marriage alliance with Pharaoh, the man in the big house, the king of Mitzrayim. What does Mitzrayim mean?
The place was in a red bank.
The red banks and canal banks. That's an irrigated land. They had irrigation down in that country that actually circumvented the plagues and the droughts. And took Pharaoh's daughter. Now, who else took one of Pharaoh's daughters as a wife? Abraham. Abraham took Hagar, Pharaoh's daughter, he was one of his concubines, as a wife. That was a political marriage also. And that marriage caused Israel trouble to this day. Do you know that? There's where all the Arab nations come from. Isn't that period? Pharaoh's daughter, and brought her to the city of David until he had finished building his own house and the house of the Lord and the wall around Jerusalem. Now he's doing all this because this is the time of peace. He doesn't have to prepare for war. He doesn't have to go out to war. What he's doing is building the empire, building the millennial reign, so to speak. But there's problems here. Here are the problems. The people were still sacrificing on high places because there was no house built to the name of the Lord until those days. Now some of them were sacrificing to the Lord on high places, and some of them were sacrificing to devils on high places. Now Solomon loved the Lord, walking in his statutes of his father David, except he sacrificed and burned incense on high places. Why? Why did he do that? Honey, would you come and go with me to church today?
What?
Honey, would you come and go to church with me today? That's exactly why he was doing it. His wives, his infidel wives, his pagan wives. And the king went up to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for there was a great high place, and Solomon offered 1,000 burnt offerings on that altar. In Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream. Dreams, visions, and hypnosis in the Bible. Now remember that. At night. And God said, ask what you wish of me and to give to you. Ask now. Ask. He'd gone up there and he probably took priests with him and he offered tremendous sacrifice. A great sacrifice. And Solomon said, you have shown great loving kindness. Now the word loving kindness there is a messianic title to your servant David and to my father, according as he walked before you in truth and righteousness and uprightness of heart toward you, and you have reserved for him great loving kindness, that you have given him a son to set on his throne, as it is to this day. the Davidic covenant. And now, O Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of David, my father David, and yet I am a little child. I do not know how to go out and come in. I don't even know where I'm going. I'm too young to even know how to come back home when I go out. Now that was a hyperbole. You know what a hyperbole is? That's an exaggeration. And your servant is in the midst of your people, which you have chosen, a great people, who cannot be numbered or counted for multitude. And yet it all began with one man and one woman, didn't it? An old man and an old woman. And that's how Israel began. It wasn't a great people then. God made them great. So give your servant an understanding heart to judge your people, to discern between good and evil, for who is able to judge this great people of yours? And it was pleasing in the sight of the Lord that Solomon had asked this thing. This is the right thing to ask. Now, he's going away, but he's coming back. He still has these political marriages with these women that are serving false gods. And God said to him, because you have asked this thing, and have not asked for yourself a long life, nor have you asked for riches for yourself, nor have you asked for the life of your enemies, but have asked for yourself a discernment and understanding of justice. Behold, I have done according to your words. Behold, I have given you a wise, discerning heart, that there has been no one like before you, nor shall there ever be anyone rise like you after you. And I have also given you what you have not asked, both riches and honor, so that there will be many among the kings like you in all your days. Not anyone like you in all your days. Now, this is what we call a conditional particle right here, if. And if you walk in my ways and keep my statutes, this is a condition. This is a conditional covenant. The covenant that he made with his father David, that there would be a child on the throne until Shiloh or Messiah comes. As your father David walked, then I will prolong your days. And Solomon awoke, and he was in a hypnotic trance. He had been in a hypnotic trance. It was a dream. And he came to Jerusalem. In hypnone is what it is in Greek. The Septuagint is in hypnosis, in hypnotic trance. In hypnose. He stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord and offered burnt offerings and made peace offerings and made a feast of all of his servants. And two women who were harlots came to the king and stood before him. They were harlots. They were prostitutes. Two prostitutes came before David. Now this is a line of work that's been among mankind for a long, long time. One of the oldest professions. And one woman said, "O my Lord, this woman and I live in the same house. And I gave birth to a child while she was in the house. And it happened on the third day that I gave birth, that this woman also gave birth to a child, and we were together. And there was no stranger with us in the house, only the two of us in the house. And the woman's son died in the night because she lay on him. She rolled over and lay on the son and smothered him, choked him, whatever. He died. So she arose in the middle of the night and took my son from beside me while your maidservant slept, while I slept, and laid him in her bosom, and laid her dead son in my bosom. And when I rose in the morning, the nurse, my son, behold, he was dead. But when I looked at him carefully in the morning, behold, he was not my son, whom I had born. Then the other woman said, No, for the living one is my son, and the dead one is your son. But the first woman said, No, for the dead one is your son, and the living one is my son. And they both spoke before the king continually. Kept arguing. Then the king said to the one who says, this is my son, who is the living, and your son is the dead one, and the other one says, no, for your son is the dead one, and my son is the living one. And the king said, get me a sword. Get me a sword. I'm going to tell you something about swords in these days. A sword wasn't very sharp. They were bronze swords and early iron swords. They were not steel. They were dull swords. And when you chop somebody or hit somebody, you might cut them. But to cut a man's head off, it might take 4 or 5 swipes or strokes. And to cut a child in two, it would have been a miserable looking affair. They would have been chopping and chopping and chopping until the parts fell apart. Give him a sword. So he brought a sword before the king. And the king said, divide the living child in two and give one half to the one and half to the other. Boy. Then the woman whose child was the living one spoke to the king, for she was deeply stirred over her son, and said, O my lord, give her the living child, and by no means kill or divide him. Then the king answered and said, give the first woman the living child, and by no means kill him. She is his mother. Now this story has gone out for millennia, many thousands of years. Everyone that has anything to do with the Bible has heard about Solomon making this great decision, this great wise decision. When all Israel heard this, of the judgment which the king had handed down, they feared the king, for they saw that the wisdom of God was in him to administer justice. In other words, the bad boys were afraid to come forth because he could see through them. You know, we have that. We have a nation full of lawyers, don't we? What do lawyers produce? Udamia, nothing. They are leeches of society. Necessary leeches, some people say. But the bad thing about it is most of them are in Washington, D.C., the successful ones. That's a real problem. Solomon was a wise man. The wisdom came from the Lord. But you might say, well, if he was wise judging, why wasn't he wise making decisions on his own? Sometimes wisdom isn't always wise. Sometimes wisdom is not always wise in his own eyes. He judged others. King Solomon was king over all of Israel, Judah and Israel both. Then it names his officials. Azariah, the son of Zadok, was the priest. Eliphareth, Ahijah, the son of Shishi, was secretary. Jehoshaphat, the son of Elulid, was a recorder, scribe. Then it goes on, Benaniah, the son of Joda, was over the army. And Zadok and Abiathar were the priests. Now, Benaniah was a man of blood, wasn't he? Solomon had him to kill people. He did kill a lot of people, didn't he? They deserved killing. But Benaniah was going to be used of the Lord. Son of the Lord. Son of the Most High. Now, Solomon would use him in many ways, to lead Israel and to execute justice. To lead Israel and to execute justice. Had Joab done this? Sometimes Joab did an excellent job of it. And sometimes he went the wrong way, like he had schizophrenia. And Asher was over the household, and Adoniram was a son of Abda, and was over the men subject to before slavery. Now we come and see the problems of Solomon, the problems with his life, what happened to him. Have to look at the time here. What happened to him? Why did he make the mistakes he made? What was going on around Solomon? You're going to hear some names in here that you might have heard. And Solomon had 12 deputies over all Israel who provided the king and his household. Each man had to provide for a month of the year. Now, people are going to be in the forced labor. They're going to be slaves for a certain period of time, a month. They get to work for themselves. 11 months. For 1 month, they work for the king. That's a lot of taxes. A lot of taxes. He's going to begin to tax the people tremendously. He was going to build the most glorious empire, but who was paying for it? The workers and the people. And these are the names. Ben-Hur, remember that country? That movie, Ben-Hur? In the hill country of Ephraim. And Ben-Decker, and by the way, Ben means son of Decker, son of Hur, in Makkah, and Shalabim, and Beth-Shemesh, and Elon Haman, and Beth-Ezed, and Saka was his, and all the land of Hepher, Abinadab, and all the height of Dor. Tophath, the daughter of Solomon, was his wife. Now we jumped all over now that Solomon's got daughters old enough to be married. They got married pretty young back then, but he had a daughter old enough to be married. And Baana, the son of Ahilud, and Tanakh, and Megiddo, and Bethshean, which is beside Zerathon, below Jezreel, from Bethshean to Abel Mahlah, as far as the side of Jokmeh, Ben-Gegar, and Ramoth, Gilead, the towns of Jair, and the son of Manasseh, which are in Gilead. Now Manasseh was, remember Manasseh in the Bible? That's Joseph's son, remember? Which are in Gilead, and were the sons in the region of Argob, and in Bashan, and 60 great cities with all walls and bronze bars were his. In other words, they had fortified cities. People at that time, if you were a farmer, you didn't live on the farm. You lived in the city. You drove to the farm every day with your oxen or whatever, you walked or whatever, but you lived in the city, in a fortified city, and you went out to your farm. And sometimes you had watchtowers on the farm, so you could see if some enemy was coming. Benadab, the son of Iddo, and Mahanaim, and Ahimaaz in Naphtali. He also married Basmeth, the daughter of Solomon. Solomon got at least 2 daughters old enough to get married now. Dan, the son of Cushai, and Asher, and Bealoth. Jehoshaphat, the son of Haruah, and Issachar. Shimei, the son of Elah, in Benjamin. Geber, the son of Uri, in the land of Gilead, the country of Sihon, and the king of Amorites, and Og, king of Bashan. Og. Who's Og? Og is the giant. He was over 9 feet tall. He's a giant, Og. And he was the only deputy who was in the land. And Judah and Israel were numerous in the sand that is on the seashore in abundance, and they were eating and drinking and rejoicing. Now Solomon ruled over all the kingdom, from the river to the land of the Philistines and the border of Egypt. They also brought tribute and served Solomon all the days of his life. He didn't have to fight. David had won all the battles for him and give it to him. Solomon in some ways is a type of us. Jesus came here and he won all the battles for us. And he gives us peace. And he gives us eternal life. Now just look and see how much food that Israel had to provide for this household. And Solomon's provision for one day was 30 cores of fine flour, 60 cores of meal, 10 fat oxen, 10 oxen, 20 pasture-fed oxen, 100 sheep, besides deer, gazelles, roebucks, and fattened fowl. For he had a dominion over everything west of the river, from Tishbeth to Gaza, over all the kings west of the river, and he had peace on all sides around him, just like Jesus gives us peace in our hearts. So Judah and Israel lived in safety, every man under his own vine and fig tree, from Dan to Beersheba, all the days of Solomon. And Solomon had 40,000 stalls of horses. 40,000 stalls. I've been to Solomon's stables. I think Sharon has too. 40,000 stalls of horses for chariots and 12,000 horsemen. And these deputies provided to King Solomon and all who came to King Solomon's table each month, and they left nothing lacking. And they also brought barley and straw for the horses, and swift steeds to a place where it should be, according to his charge. And God gave Solomon wisdom and every great discernment and great breadth of mind, like the sand is on the seashore. When he talks about sand and when he talks about stars, by the way, sand is earthly stuff. The stars is heavenly, spiritual stuff. The sand is earthly stuff. The stars is heavenly stuff. All these earthly witches, all the earthly riches throughout the land he had. For he was wiser than all men, than Ethan, and from Esmite, and Heman, and Kalkal, and Dordah, and the sons of Mahal, and his fame was known to all the surrounding nations. And he spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs were 1,005. And he spoke of trees, from the cedar that is in Lebanon to the hyssop that grows on the wall. He spoke of all the animals and birds and creeping things and fish. In other words, he studied botany and life, biology also. Botany and biology. He knew about all types of things. And men came from all the peoples to hear the wisdom of Solomon, from all the kings of the earth who had heard of his wisdom. He's famous. Now, people say, I want to be rich and famous. Sometimes when you're rich, you can be famous. Sometimes even when you're not rich, you can be famous. Famous means abounding in fame. But if you want to be famous, be abounding in the right kind of fame. Not infamous. You don't want to be infamous, you want to be famous. If you want to be anything at all. I like being secluded, out in the country. I'm a natural born hermit. Except I do this for you and for the Lord, that you might learn from his word. Solomon was a great source of wisdom for material things. He knew how to build. He knew how to breed horses. He knew all the animal life. He knew the what we might call the vegetable life and forms all around him, all the trees, everything. He was an agriculturist, a botanist, biologist, a zoologist, all of these things he was. With all of this, it was not as important as that he knew the Lord and the Lord spoke to him and through him. Because he spoke to him in visions and dreams and hypnosis. And when he did that, David did well. As long as he didn't go astray from those edicts that God had given him. Our Father, we send this message out for your honor and glory. Please use it. Please, wherever it goes, I pray for all of those out there, from coast to coast, and from pole to pole, and from continent to continent. All of my students mean so much to me because you've given me the ability to reach them, touch their lives. Please, Father, forgive me where I failed you. In Jesus' name I pray.